Kelly, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today from your sauna in Wisconsin.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
I always tease Kelly whenever I talk to him that his office looks like a sauna, which would be wonderful sometimes.
You and every one of my German colleagues for the past 7 years.
Okay, so it's not an original joke. Okay, fair enough. Kelly, I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation because naturally, Commercetools, the nature of your platform, relates to the innovations and how ChatGPT and large language models generally are kind of impacting this industry. So I'm really interested first, really, for you to talk about your point of view from Commercetools' perspective on using large language models and generative AI, and what's the intersection there, and how is Commercetools thinking about this?
We're actually really excited. It works really well for us because we have all of our functionality and data very, very, very cleanly exposed through nice, well-documented public APIs. We also have a lot of our source code in the public domain, and that's been picked up by the LLMs. So generally, it's really easy for AI to work with us. And AI doesn't want to call some obscure method on a monolithic commerce platform where nothing's documented. What AI wants is to be able, actually, AI doesn't want anything if we're going to be specific about this at the toaster, but it is easier through AI to call Commercetools because we are so API first, everything perfectly exposed, everything public, everything documented, makes it really easy. So we think this is great, and I think in the future, I think there are going to be a lot of great AI use cases for commerce. Generally, though, we're not really going to be doing features that are AI only. I think there are a lot of folks in the market that are just jumping on this bandwagon right now, and they're assembling these little teams to put together vaporware, and they're saying, oh, look, we do AI too. And they're finding features to build for marketing and PR purposes rather than actual features that help customers. And if you look generally at commerce, nobody's really originating anything new in commerce. So people aren't really creating products. They're not really creating product imagery in Commercetools. They're not creating stuff, nor are they really decisioning anything. You have specialized vendors out there for fraud, for payments, for search. Like with Bloomreach, of course. Those are all great use cases for AI because you're having to make a decision. But Commercetools, we're much more underlying infrastructure. We're plumbing. We're a very necessary plumbing, but we are much more of an order capture system as opposed to a let's create something or let's route something or decide something. So as a result, there aren't a lot of natural use cases. It's hard to apply AI to a shopping cart. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. And again, there are a lot of disingenuous use cases out there I've seen marketed recently. What we're doing instead at Commercetools is saying, how can we use AI to help our customers and our partners get live with Commercetools more quickly? So you could say, you can do this today with GPT-4, create an integration between Commercetools and Bloomreach Search, and it'll do it perfectly. You can say, connect Commercetools to Adyen for payments. It'll do it perfectly. So it makes Mock a lot easier. Also, for our documentation is being AI enabled, very similar to what Stripe did, where you can actually ask a natural language question to our documentation, like, what is the token in Commercetools? And it's not just copying and pasting something, it's actually coming up with an original answer based on our very well written public documentation on what a token is in Commercetools world. So that's helpful. You can also use AI to generate front ends. That's very beneficial. Makes perfect sense there. We had a team of 6 actually build an Adidas.com clone in 6 hours, and they did it pretty well. It's convincing. It's not bad for 6 hours worth of work for the very first time they ever did it. We also have AutoGPT enabled, so you can use AutoGPT with Commercetools, and there you could define a goal, right? And a goal might be create a marketing campaign for my 5 least selling products. And it'll actually go through, you can list step by step what you want it to do, and it'll find the 5 products that have sold the least. It'll create product content for them. It will create a marketing email, right? And that's a perfect use case for AI. That makes perfect sense. But you can use AutoGPT. We're also allowing our customers to expose their product.
If I could just pause for a moment. Yeah, let me just pause for a moment, because we may have people dialing in who are not that familiar with AutoGPT, which is a very interesting sort of meta product that sits on top of, in this case, ChatGPT, that breaks down goals into many different subtasks, and you can sort of cap how much you want it to leverage the platform, because obviously there's a cost. It's leveraging APIs that you are subscribing to, your business or yourself personally, and then running these routines. And it's a very interesting way to accomplish sort of larger projects like the one you're describing, and kind of break it down into a lot of subtasks that then get run through, in this case, ChatGPT. So I just wanted to pause there in case there's people who aren't as familiar. And maybe you could correct my description if I got anything wrong there, but it's very interesting.
It's very meta, as you said, but it's very goal oriented, right? So the goal is create more sales. How do you do that? And then you can step through, you just put down what you want. And what's interesting is it will actually take the output of AI as then input again to another call back to AI. So it gets a little, make your head hurt. Our goal as a company is, let's expose everything perfectly so that AI can use us. And because we have everything so public, we've been so public for so long with everything. Since the very beginning, we've had everything in the public domain. That has allowed it to become incorporated, where, again, a lot of folks out there have taken the opposite approach of, let's put our documentation behind a paywall, right? Let's make people log in with their business email. And our approach has always been, no, as what was it? Aaron Schwartz once said, the information should be free. Isn't something like that? That's true.
Something like that,
right?
Yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And then the final thing we're doing as a company is we're saying for all of our customers, we're going to allow them to very quickly and easily upload all of their data in real time to ChatGPT. So if a product becomes available, let's say you get a new shipment of iPhones in, so you've got the new iPhone 15 coming in, or whatever it's going to be named, right? If a local person, if you, Brian, are looking for an iPhone 15, you could ask ChatGPT, you could say, where's the closest physical store to me that has this specific model of iPhone 15 in stock? And because that real-time pricing and availability data is there, it allows you to very quickly figure that out. And you can imagine it's not going to be too long until we have ChatGPT or equivalent hooked up to an Alexa type device or a Google Home, right? Where you could just say, order this for me, right? I'm an iPhone user. I get a brand new iPhone every year. Hey, whatever the name is of the new assistant, get it for me, right? And it will get it for me, right? That's kind of the cool but scary thing about AI, right? I don't know what
obviously,
measures it would take to get one, but
many of these large language models, because of the vast data set and the training data that they've been trained on up to this point, have in many cases stale data. So if you're looking for something very contemporary, whether it's information or news or products, it may not actually have any visibility to that. One of the advantages of a headless solution like Commercetools that is all API enabled is the opportunity to create different kinds of experiences, different heads, if you will, on top of the platform with a common, consistent underlying foundation. How do you see the rise of generative AI, tools like ChatGPT and so forth, evolving the customer experience? And what kinds of things do you think about as it relates to then taking advantage of a platform like Commercetools?
Well, I think AI is ahead right? We've always looked at web browsers or mobile apps or whatever as heads. A head is just a means to get what you want, right? And I'll give you a good example. If you go to ChatGPT today and you say, recommend me three reasonably priced e-bikes that would fit in the back of my Toyota 4Runner or whatever it is, right? It will go out, it will look at the dimensions of that trunk, find e-bikes, figure out what size they collapse to, look at the reviews, look at the pricing, and give three ordered recommendations for what that would look like. And if you think about it, that's what most heads are trying to help you do. They're trying to help you discover something, find something. That's what I want, right? And same with, I'll give you an example. I was looking for new luggage. I had a wheel break on my bag, and what I wanted to know was what piece of luggage from the Toomey lineup would fit in the overhead of a CRJ 900, right? Because that's what I'm stuck flying out of Wisconsin, right? And that was a really difficult question to answer. But ChatGPT knew that. It knows what size the overheads are, put in Delta as my airline, and it was able to go through the entire catalog and give that to me. So I think AI is a really good way of doing product discovery that otherwise a UI might be a little bit clumsy at. But there are sometimes you want a UI. If you're shopping for a luxury handbag, you're probably going to want to look at the product imagery. You're going to want much more of a brand experience. And in that case, AI is great for, and this isn't our domain, this would probably be your domain more on the content side, but optimizing content, optimizing experiences, personalizing, that's decisioning. And that falls into the not Commercetools category. And that's where we rely on best of breed mock vendors like Bloomreach to really offer those tools. And AI just makes this all so much more easy because now you can interact with both Commercetools and a Bloomreach through AI.
That makes sense. And I definitely agree. Like the product discovery experience is going to change dramatically. And, the ability to then narrow the selection down to the ones I really should care about versus hunting and pecking and sorting and filtering. I also think new channels, well, I shouldn't say new channels, channels that have been slow to take off from a commerce perspective, now with these kinds of experiences may become much more important. And the reason why I think it's important to kind of bring up is, platforms like Commercetools enable you to then experiment leveraging the same platform that you might support your website or your mobile apps with, and experiment with these kind of things without having to rebuild any of that technology infrastructure underneath.
One of our customers is a large media conglomerate, and they are using us for all their shoppable commerce. And they actually have a technology that they're using today in real life, where if you're watching a TV show, you might see somebody wearing a different pair of shoes than what I see that same person wearing. And they can swap that out digitally in real time based on what they think that you are most likely to buy. So if they know that you, Brian, are a Nike guy, right, they're going to do that. And AI makes that even smarter because now AI can say, what shoes is Brian most likely to buy after, say, Nike, right? Is
some
Brian a
people
runner?
aren't
Is Brian
thrilled
going to do
about some
running
of these
shoes?
ideas.
Mhm. But
Some people aren't.
it's spooky. It's very
Yeah, some
spooky
people
what
aren't
this can
thrilled.
do.
Yeah, yeah. But there's going to be some interesting opportunities there. To kind of wrap up, Kelly, I'd love to get your point of view on a day in the life of a merchant, a marketer, a developer, 5 years in the future as these kinds of tools become much more prevalent, more mature. How do you see that sort of day in the life, inside an e-commerce organization?
Well, from a development standpoint, I'll start there first. It's actually easier than ever to write code for Commercetools and write front ends. And that's through, and you can do the code interpreter option in ChatGPT. There's a copilot that you can use, but it's pretty trivial these days to write nearly production ready code. You can also, and I was doing this myself, I was playing around with ChatGPT And I had to write a little bash script, a little shell script, and I couldn't figure out how to I was trying to awk some data. Anyway, I uploaded it and I said, "What's wrong with this?" And I attached the shell script. And it actually told me, it told me what was wrong with it. And then it asked if I would like it fixed. And I said yes. And I downloaded it, ran it, it worked perfectly. So I think a lot of the low level plumbing of getting stuff to work is going to be a lot easier. And that's good because it means that folks can differentiate. They can focus much more on brand, on value, on differentiation. That versus the how do I get data out of this database or things like that. And on the marketing side, it's going to be a lot easier to work with data. So rather than having to build an elaborate SQL query and query 10 different tables and, you could just say something like, what are my top 10 performing shoes, right? Why are these the most performant shoes, right? And it might say, well, the manufacturers spend a lot of money on marketing and product placement. Okay, that's a reason, What do you think is the up and coming shoe that people are going to start buying? And you can go through and very, very easily interact with these things. I've got a big quarter deadline coming up soon. I'm $20 million short. Optimize everything from a pricing and promotion standpoint so that I hit my number this quarter. Boom, execute, right? And it should go through and either raise or lower prices, apply product discounts accordingly, send some emails out, right? And that's pretty cool because it's much more outcome oriented. You define what the goal is. And because AI can then interact with our APIs respectively, it makes it a lot easier to do this stuff.
Yeah, I think the data point is a super powerful one. I think for merchants and marketers alike, right? It's not really been an issue of shortage of data, although there may have been consistency issues and other things that they were wrestling with. But, the challenge is interrogating the data if you don't really have the advanced skill sets or waiting for the answer from an analyst or somebody like that, someone on the
Right.
team, and then asking the follow-up question, right, which could take a week or more to kind of like interrogate the reason why something is happening, good or bad. More of a natural language conversation about what's happening in the business with a system that can actually go and run those queries and respond much, much, much faster to then enable me to essentially have a dialogue about what's going on. And then, yeah, there's optimization opportunities like you talked about, to say, okay, based on this, what do you recommend? And or take this kind of action. And then you can imagine tools that can break down the tasks and run routines in order to facilitate that. I know a lot of people are concerned about the impact that's going to have on jobs and so on. But the reality is these are teams that are overtaxed and, bogged down in the blocking and tackling. And as you said, there's an opportunity to, focus on differentiation, brand execution, get more creative, because you're able to move faster in an informed way. So I love that. Great idea.
And I like what you said about data because we are swimming in data, but it's not terribly actionable. And I'll give you just a personal example. I was just playing with ChatGPT myself. I wanted to play with the new code interpreter feature where you can upload spreadsheets. And I took a look at my LinkedIn connections and I thought to myself, LinkedIn is the data that comes out of it is very basic, right? So you can't say, for example, show me retailers in St. Louis, Missouri, right? Because it doesn't know that Walmart's a retailer, right? It doesn't know that AutoZone is a retailer in Memphis, right? It doesn't know that stuff. And it doesn't know the difference between Deloitte UK and Deloitte Spain and Deloitte US, right? It sees those as distinctly different companies, even though they're the same thing, but there's a relationship there. It's a very flat view of the world. And just as an example, I took my connections and I ran it through a bunch of times and enriched it. Is this person working for a retailer? Where is the company headquartered? Is the company large? And I went through and I added a whole bunch of data. And then I've got this nice giant spreadsheet full of enriched data. And I just said something basic like, Pretend I'm driving from Wisconsin down to Dallas. Who are some retailers I should stop and meet, and only give me people I've known for 10 years? So now it calculates my route. It looks for retailers, finds people who I know over 10 years who work at the retailers. And it gave me a really nice ordered list of here are the people you should meet with. And I just thought that was really cool because the data was sitting there, but it was totally unactionable, right? That would have taken hours of time to figure that out. And now you can just hit enter. 10 seconds later, you get it, everything spit back perfectly. And I just think that's it's empowering for people to be able to do that kind of stuff.
Kelly, thank you so much for your time today. Always fascinating, always interesting. I always learn a lot from talking with you and always get a lot of great ideas. It's been wonderful to reconnect here today, Kelly. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you.